read, and also memory of the blood that Pele slaughtered the children of the Jews. Memory of that, they should use red wine only. However, there were times, generations, when the goyim of the world, countries, nations of the world, who were so evil, so malicious, that they would make false accusations against the Jews, in that they would use the goyish blood, the blood of goyish children, for their wine. Now, besides being evil, malicious, it's also ridiculous. Who would want to eat chazak blood? What? Such a thought could never enter a person's mind anyhow. Now, of course, this is naturally, even they did not believe it. Understood? This sought for a means of trying to destroy the mitzvahs of the Jews. That's what Nosson said, that if you study it, you'll see obviously that the goyim want only one thing: to separate the Jews from their religion, chas v'shalom, in every means possible. But they do not succeed. You say, every day that so far the goyim rise up against us, if one falls, new one rises up. There's always one rising against the Jews to try to stop the Jews, to separate them from the Torah chas v'shalom. And always these poor Jews who are so weak, and like little lambs in front of so many wolves, these poor Jews are helped, rescued by the shepherd. Look at the power of the shepherd, Hashem, who can nourish a lamb of this kind with so many wolves, and the lamb remains alive while the wolves perish. So until ultimately Hashem will destroy all these wolves, all these poisonous snakes, then the Jews will rise up as the one nation of Hashem forever afterwards. The Seder table, a person should show covered for the Yontif, just like we have a din that the clothes a person wears, big day Shabbos, are different than big day Chol. A person must wear different garments for Shabbos than he does for the weekdays. But Arizal says even that it is proper, it is best for a person to have two talisim. One who's married, of course, wears a talis, should have one talis for the weekdays and one talis for Shabbos, just as he has two suits, which means two kinds of suits, one for weekdays and one for Shabbos. In the case of Yom Tov, even though Shabbos is holier than Yom Tov, the finish is that when it comes to clothing, big day Yom Tov should be better, nicer, more expensive than big day Shabbos, if such a thing is possible. Now, it is possible. A person doesn't save a garment to wear 3 times a year. But it is possible whereby a person who buys a new suit buys it for Yom Tov rather than for Shabbos. So at the moment, it's brand new, it's the best suit he has. But buying a suit, you should see that he buys it for the covered Yom Tov. The same thing too, he buys new kelim, new dishes, new glasses, crystalware, silverware, to buy it with covered Yom Tov rather than the covered Shabbos. In this case, the Chida of Yom Tov is greater. And to set the table to the best kelim possible, even those dishes that are not going to be used for the Suda, for the meal, still, they should be placed on the table to beautify the Yom Tov table. That way, when he beautifies the mitzvahs, Zek Kelim Yamehu, Zechat to come closer to Hashem, and that's a chus, a person Zechat to become truly a ben chayim. We should be Zechat the emes to Ivdei Hashem the emes b'chol avavenu b'chol nafshenu b'chol miyadenu Mike. That's what we should see now the coming of Mashiach, and now the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and now that we should have to come to bring the Korban Pesach, this Pesach we should bring. This Pesach, it says that, it's a mitzvah to be Mekabel Shabbos early. The Maharim Lovai. The mitzvah is to keep the Shabbos as long as possible. You start the Shabbos earlier, you receive the Shekhinah earlier. Mitzvah then is to end the Shabbos later. If you go beyond the prescribed time, it's called Teshuva Shabbos Kodesh. The one who adds time to Shabbos earlier, the beginning and the end, the Kodesh says this is where the Shami Seder comes from. One he who adds time to Shabbos, they add to him additional Shami. Same thing applies to the Yontif Kodesh. Yontif also, it's a mitzvah to add time to Yontif, take time off in the middle of the week, which means Friday, put it on to Yontif, make Yontif longer, keep Yontif later. Now, despite this then, it's to add time to Yontif, the evening of Pesach, the first Seder, you cannot start the Seder before dark. It must be a positive night before you can start the Seder. You could daven earlier, Kabbalah Yontif earlier. You cannot sit down to make Kiddush, you cannot make Kiddush, sit down to eat before it is absolutely dark. Because he says, must be night, definite night. So to the same thing with the 4 cups of wine. Since the cup of Kiddush is more than 4 cups of wine, you not make Kiddush until it is definitely night. It's customary for the head of the table to put on a kippel, and the din of kippel, kippel stands for a couple of reasons. Anyway, this is customary only for the head of the table to wear the kippel, and it's customary too that if a person is the head of a table immediately after he's married, first year of his wedding, instead of going to parents or to in-laws, as is customary, as it is, in case he happens not to have any parents or in-laws or can go to, for the first year it's customary not to wear the kippel. Until after the first year he goes to give the kippel, would seem as a sign of Havelis, a sign of the kippel is only at the mason wear. Dress a mace with a beggar mace and a kippel. First year it's only Simcha Sishta, it's the year of Simcha, that's why he does not wear it. On the other hand, customary that although two does not wear it, it says at the same time that Uncle could wear it because the mitzvah is that very diversified reasons that even Uncle can wear it also. But this applies only to one person at the table. The additional point at the Seder, permitting to pour a special cup of wine for Eliyahu Hanavi. Here, we're not going into any controversies, discussions about it. It's a straight fact. There are different opinions as to when this cup should be filled. Some say it's filled at the end of the Seder, when you open the door for Eliyahu Hanavi. That's when some of them fill this cup. They fill this cup and they fill the 4th cup of wine. According to some, this is what's called, it's known as the Kais Chamishi, the 5th cup. Actually, the fact is that this cup of wine, as we have seen, is filled at the very beginning of the Seder. It's kept on the table throughout the entire Seder because we don't invite Eliyahu just to the very end when there's nothing else to eat. We invite them at the very beginning and participate and partake in our Seder completely from beginning to end. This is the mitzvah of the especially one like Eliyahu. So a din that was brought up, side Shaila, reference to, which refers to Pesach, Shaila Chametz, Pesach, whether you consider soap as Chametz, the unkosher soap. Some people say that because the dog would need it, therefore it's permissible. Of course, that's erroneous. You don't go by what a dog doesn't eat. Some dogs have different types of appetites. Some dogs like the leg of a person. Others because of the color. But the case of soap, which most probably is a certain type of its namely type, it's still in a lesser category than Chametz Duksha. Which means not just that you're allowed to keep it, but that you actually could use it. There are some who are particular about buying certain soap in a certain laboratory. Whether or not to plug that laboratory with certain shortcomings for Pesach, and ensure that the soap they sell is not much different than the soap that's in the market. So if soap is used throughout the year, body soap, you use it for Pesach too. The other problem with soap is not about Pesach, but about the kashrus of the soap. Some soaps have an OU on it, and you use it for washing dishes or washing clothes. You don't want to feed your clothes straight for soap. But your body, of course, doesn't really matter. in this case, you have these soaps that are made of fats, which are surely not kosher. They don't have any oil in it. The person is allowed to wash with that type of soap in the middle of the year. This channel is brought in time, and there is a day, it's really good, posek that sicha kishtiya, which means that in the body, throughout the entire body, there are pores, tiny holes in the body, the skin. Every dermatologist knows this. There are these tiny openings in the skin, and when you smear anything on it, it absorbs, swallows up, and takes in whatever you smear on it. And the showers on this is considered drinking only through the mouth, and maybe for any other part of the body. The mouth is one opening, there are other openings. According to some, we say sticha k'shtiya, that smearing, absorbing the same as drinking, and therefore the Holy Ghost says that it is forbidden for a person to use draper soap because the body is drinking fats, non-kosher fats. This is an interesting opinion part of the Holy Ghost, but the thing is, except the Halacha is not so. See if I like to stay in that respect, and therefore the custom is to use this soap throughout the year. Therefore, too, on Pesach, it is not customary. Again, it's pitifully a case of seeing the erroneous concept on the part of most people. But most people practically, I would say, do not use the regular soap, flux, ivory, and so on. However, what I say too, it's not that serious to use it. Each his own. Whatever a person wants to buy the laboratory soap, then well and good. It's certainly better. But otherwise, it's not that bad to use the regular soap for Pesach. The main thing is that we should not be really clean. It should only covers to clean. Clean and hot, and it needs. Midas Tavis, nice and Tavis. It's Chusu, Chemist, Arizal, the other later, not the Pesach, we should see the from Pesach this year, the next Mikdash, this should be We have two limudim today, Shulchan and the Syrian. The question which goes first, the answer of course always is that which is more often comes first. Todim, Sheni Todim. And we do not have a Syrian that often. We don't have a Syrian every day. So Shulchan comes first very briefly. Arizal says it is like must. It's compulsory for every Jew to learn it. Then Shulchan can stay at least 12 hours. Conform with it. The halachas b'chol yom, halachas b'chol yom. Person gets in Haba. That's because he listens to the tzadik. It then says that after the first 2 cups of wine at the Seder, you eat the Suda, and when it comes to eating the Suda, then a person should bleed. We explained very clearly that you're not supposed to lead, you're not allowed to lead during the time of saying the Haggadah or saying anything at all. Any bracha you say, you must sit erect. So when you eat either the matzah or any other part of the food, like with the karpas, mora, any other part of the food, which is matzah, and of course they have good one, you must lead. During the entire meal, a person should lead. It's a sign of freedom. Sometimes leading is a very difficult thing to do. It's less free, less comfortable, but you've got to show freedom even if it's uncomfortable. Karpas is more you don't need, but if you can play it back on things. Now there are people who are accustomed to eating eggs at the Suda. Of course it is a custom to eat an egg. But a person should stick to it. This is not the mitzvah of the day. The reason we eat eggs then, number of items, the egg is the symbol of the korban chagiga. You have it on the Seder plate, and the egg of course should be cooked, not boiled, like the Arizal. And also the egg is a symbol of the korban Mikdash. Always on the first day of Pesach, exactly on the same day of the week, will come out Tisha B'Av. So remind us of the korban Mikdash, and this day is the day of the Geula, schedule when the Geula will take place on the next day of Mikdash. So a person should be careful to leave room, not to eat too much, leave room for the apikumun. You cannot finish the meal without the apikumun. Before mentioning the apikumun, you leave, then you bench, and then you complete the rest of the 2 cases after benching. Fourth case, you must drink entirely, completely, while the other 3 drink only the majority. The Kriya Shema Lamita, that's said, R Nosson, it is mentioned in Shulchan, but the custom is to say only the first parsha, Shema Yisrael V'Ahavta, V'Racha Hamapa Chavei. However, it is definitely much more advisable, much wiser to say the entire Kriya Shema, Shema Yisrael until Shema Yisrael Emes, and the V'Racha Hamapa. It's a very small difference in time and pace. The rest of the Kishma you skip. But the Kriya Shema itself, a person should be wise and say all 3 parshas. There's much to gain, and there's nothing to lose. You get to sleep a few seconds later. A person does not drink wine all year because it harms him. In this case, he finds it difficult to drink wine, it's unhealthy for him, it's causing pain and suffering and anguish and drunkenness, discomfort. In case we have a video that we say, be a good boy and force yourself. You must drink 4 cups of wine, there's no excuse. If tzadikim did, the Begoy, says drank 4 cups of wine and suffered for 7 weeks, surely we are not compared to him. We surely have to make some kind of a sacrifice. Our sacrifice is very small because today's wine is extremely weak compared to the wine of the old days. After the Suddha, after the 4 cups of wine, the person is not allowed to drink anything, any kind of liquid the first night, except water. Again, the same rule applies here. The person is not allowed to drink anything before Shachas, Chas v'Sholem. So the Kodesh says that the person eating or drinking before Shachas, and as the Gemara says, it's considered worthy of receiving a death penalty from heaven. So eat or drink before davening. There is no excuse whatsoever, Chas v'Sholem, because this shows the absolute disrespect to Hashem. When you daven to Hashem, that means you are kaviyachal, bringing a korban. That means food before Hashem, food before the king. The person eats before he feeds the king, deserves a death penalty. Therefore, Lord, the Halacha says there are some posek who bring an idea of taking something, tasting something before davening, so you can daven better. This is definitely not the right minhag. The minhag will say that the person wants to keep himself Kodesh, spiritually, you should see to it that it does not taste anything before davening. In fact, even that one item which is permissible, water, only water, that too a person should abstain from. A person would say, go through life without drinking water before davening, Kodesh Yemoho. That's why in this case too, after the 4th place of wine, you're not allowed to drink anything except water. If possible, a person can avoid water in this case, also is in a higher category. Second night of Pesach, second Seder, there is a little bit lighter. A person could drink. Again, if possible, again, a person should try to avoid drinking. One final item before the 4th place, it's customary to open the door for the Yanavi. To greet the Yanavi. We open the door to show that we are not afraid of anything because this is a real shul. Hashem guides us. The Yanavi is coming to give us some sort of teva. Good news about the Kula Shlema. That there are some people who pour an extra cup of wine for the Yanavi. Of course, this too is it's wrong in that part. Every Jew has this custom. It's wrong for us to do that. And we use the word Chas v'Sholem too because the custom is to show greater respect for the Yanavi. If we don't say the word if, we say since, definitely believe. When he does come to the Seder, when we invite him before the meal, not after the meal. Before the cup of wine, the Yanavi, beginning of the Seder, not before the 4th place. Before our first cup, before the Yanavi's first cup. That cup too remains throughout the Seder. You watch carefully, you'll find that there's a little zip of wine missing after each cup. And if so, you may believe it or you don't have to. It's better, at least you know that it is there. we should be zecher to see the coming of Mashiach, really B'surah, really the Korev, bring the actual Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash. In Pesach there is a din minus b'chayim. Born have to fast that day. Very difficult to fast. It's much easier to eat. You have your choice. You'd much rather eat than fast. There is the means of evasion. Even legally. Going to the din, a person who finishes the Sechta weeks of Siyam can make a Sudas Mitzvah. This Sudas Mitzvah supersedes the Chiyuv of fasting. All those who are present at the time of the Sudas Mitzvah are exempt from fasting, so that those who have a chaylev means one of the firstborn son, or according to some posek, the firstborn daughter also, even one is Boach HaNefel, firstborn only the father and only the mother. So in this case we have particular because we know that all the firstborn children would kill Makach Chodesh. Remember that all the firstborn are included in this Chiyuv and Tanis Chaylev. But we have received today time, Hashem, fortunately, for those who are firstborn, all those who are not, too, who can partake in the mitzvah of the Siyam, which is a big privilege. Because you get to eat the cake without having to work for it. Work, learn, accept it, and you're entitled to a piece of cake. This way you join in and you become a partner, silent partner. However, it's wrong to be a silent partner, so each one joins in at least for the end of the Masechta. As the Gemara says, Mitzvah Nikanas, Al Shem Gudva. Mitzvah counts according to the one that finished it, not the one that started. Explain what the Gemara talks about Moshe Feinstein, who occupied himself with the problem of getting the coffin, the honor of Yisrael tzadik, while all the Jews were gathering gold and clothes and Egypt was enough. Despite this, the credit for the burial of Yisrael tzadik is given to the Jews in Reformation of Menachem, because he could not go into Israel to Shechem. Yisrael tzadik was buried. When the Jews who did bury him, recorded in the Torah, was buried through them. Of course, the main part of the mitzvah is the final part, the finality. For those who are present for the last words of the Gemara, give it credit, though they know the entire thing. You cannot, of course, take 60 Gemaras to learn the last line, 60 lines yourself. You've got to be at the end of the actual theme. If you go to 60 Siyams, at least you have got credit for Shas. Easy way, and get somebody who's going through Shas, again, become a partner. Today we have easy in the sense of size, except the Hades, which is a short Gemara, so Daf Yudala, which means about 12 lot, but pretty difficult when you want to try. At least that's what I've heard. And the end of the Gemara deals with you haven't got time to go through the story at the end, but very opportunely we're going to get to this story soon in our regular Wednesday night shul. Fascinating story. What seemed like a vote of the rabbis of Gemara against the Nosson, few of them, or resulted of it, and of course, get to learn, we'll see how this plenary vote, plenary rebellion, it was all done the Shem Shemayim with the greatest respect for Nosson, the chief rabbi and the commission. But after this story is over, immediately afterwards, the Gemara speaks about comparing Ludwig, comparing to the Chacham. How do you evaluate, how do you appraise the greatness of a Talmud Chacham? A person knows how to learn what is considered Talmud Chacham, and then you compare to it. The Gemara says, Yaakov, who was the quote of the R Nosson, he was the chief rabbi of himself, said, there is a machlokes in Shimon and Aharon as to the question of which is greater. Chad Amar, one says, Sinai Odif, Chad Amar, Eker Haram Odif. You have two Talmidei Chacham. One is called Sinai, and one is called Ekel Haran, which is greater. Sinai, Mount Sinai means the place where it was handed down the entire Torah. This means quantity. Sinai. The Chacham is in the category of Sinai where he has learned all of the Torah, or at least a great abundance of it. We say Sinai in one word would mean Baki. Baki means that he has a clear knowledge, memory of vast stores of information from the Torah, which means he knows Shas, Drashim, Ziktos, Kutas, and so on. Of course, naturally, Shulchan. This is one. But he has a very good memory, excellent memory. He remembers what he learned, but he's not that deep. His mind is not that sharp that he can delve into a question and go into all the facets of the question, determine, go into. So as a pilpul, he's level-headed, pays a lot of learning, but not that deep. Second Rahman, does not have that much information. He has not learned that much. You can do it and see all the different angles, the depth of each question in it. They can arrive at a better conclusion than the first. If it's only something which is centered on one single topic, on one item. It's not that broad, ignoring different topics. So a sharp mind or a retentive memory, not just retentive, one who has learned and retains, which one is better? There's a debate about this. One says Sinai, the store of information, and one says I can hold the sharp mind. Gemara says we have an actual case of two such rabbis. Rav Yosef Sinai, Abba Ekel Haran. These two contemporary rabbis lived at the same time. These were the greatest of their time. And there had to be appointed a chief rabbi between these two. Between Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef was Sinai. He had a fantastic memory. He remembered everything. In fact, the Megillah says that he even wrote the Targum on the Yosef. And Abba, who was a Ekel Haran, very extremely sharp mind. Including the sharpness of mind, he was unsurpassed. The question was, Shalchul Talmud, they sent a message to Eretz Israel, the elders, and asked, which one comes first? Which one should we take as our chief rabbi? Shalchul Lahem, so they wrote back, Sinai Odif, Yomad Marak, Sinai is better. A rabbi who has more information, more knowledge, even if he's not that sharp, is worth more to a kehillah, to a community, to a city, to the people, than one who has a sharp mind. Because a sharp mind, not everyone can appreciate, not everyone requires. But information, everyone needs. A person has a shiloh today on a mixture of silverware. Another person has a shiloh on marriage. Another third person has a shiloh on a case of a loan. Question of whether the loan is a legal one. So forth in different, various, diversified fields. Everyone needs a Chacham who has this information. Therefore, the Bees had decided that Rav Yosef is the one to be selected as chief rabbi. He was offered the position. Like Kabul Rav Yosef Alei, Rav Yosef refused to accept this position, and he's allowed Rabba to take over instead of himself. Malach, Rabba Esrim Etat Ishnin. Other, Rav Yosef, Rabba ruled, king, he reigned. He reigned because of like a king. He reigned for a period of 22 years. And then Rav Yosef reigned for a period of close to 3 years. Why? Because Rav Yosef saw that he would pass away after a couple of years as chief rabbi. So he said, I'd rather not reign, I'd rather not take over this exalted position and live. As long as the Rabbi is the leader, I know for sure I'm going to live that long. I've lived all these years. If I take over right now, I'll die in just a few years. This was his reason, very logical reason. Of course, it was so. He also says that he was not sure, though, what was meant by this dream, or this vision that he would die after ruling a couple of years. The ruling might be not necessarily as chief rabbi. It could be as let's say, the head of a business too, or it could be as the master of his house. So he's very careful, very cautious. All he is, the Rabbi ruled, Rav Yosef was afraid. He didn't even call a doctor into his house. That's what the Gemara says, of course. Stop right there. That's already the wisest thing possible. This does not mean necessarily doctrine. It means an expert who draws blood. In those days, when a person was sick, they felt that their blood was diseased. They would draw the amount of blood, let out a pint of blood more, and this way would help to ease the pressure in a person's body. So this was a special person, not a doctor, an expert who did this, and you would usually call this expert to your house. Yosef refused to call this house because it means that he would be ordering somebody to go to the office of this person, whereas normally, you'd have it called. This is one shot. The second shot that the Rabbi says, he says the second shot is what he likes better, of course. The Maya is naturally. He says that before Saad, that Yosef's Badimus showed a tremendous degree of modesty, humbleness, willing to give up, surrender his leadership, his ruling power, because the power of the chief rabbi is absolute. The covenant given to him is unmatched, unparalleled. His word is law. His sense is like a dictator. I'm sure like a dictator too. But in that, whatever he says is absolute law. Nobody can go against the Nosson, because it means automatic chayil, heavenly curse, which causes his demise. So this, of course, in a sense, is great power and wealth. It means covered everything. Yosef was that modest, that humble. He said, I don't want this wealth and this power. I want nothing. This is his schar was like his house, meaning his family. Not once was a doctor called to his house in all those 42 years. There's no sickness of any kind in his home. Of course, that is the reward for humbleness. Agav, I just want to point out, this may not be pertinent, but it's a mitzvah from Kedusha. And if you show the Kedusha, that's found in the Gemara. Tzaddik Kodesh says, very clearly, every single word of the Gemara is a sign. Every word. The rabbis of the Gemara knew what they were saying. Saying words, and they had different meanings in them. There's pshat, plain pshat, and there's derush. You find depth. There's also secrets in the Gemara. Which means that these rabbis actually, Arizal says, to imply, they were not saying their own words. Every word they said was the word of Hashem. Every word they said had already been said above, even by themselves, before they were born, as we showed us today. They already learned this Torah, and each amount was doled out, distributed to each one of them. This is your share of Torah. You come down, you will say this part of the Torah, repeating, of course, the words that Hashem gave you. Which means that since they are Kaviyachah, messenger of Hashem, it says that Shulchan messenger is the same as the sender. So in a sense, these rabbis are Kaviyachah, we use that term, they are Hashem. And this we see, as the Zohar says, Fedish. Rabbi Nachman said to the Yerushalmi that every one of these Talmidim stands for the name of Hashem. Now, for example, you find that the Abba, for instance, not the Galot, the Al-Nesik to Hashem, the Doi, the Kale, one name specifically that we can understand, or first, in others, we say, can't understand how these names were originated. We know the names that came before, like Yosef, tzadik. How do you get Rabbi Yosef? Where did that come from? Where do you find the origin of that name? Of course, there are certain names that never hail it. But this name, to be so often used in the Gemara, that's not a name that you find so often today. Yosef? The answer is, Yosef being not the other kid. Therefore, this shows He knows the fact that this name stands for a king, just as other names too. Just as, for example, one of the most often quoted names of the Gemara, not the most, is Rava. Abaye and Rava, come to know. Abaye and Rava were the two greatest of the Amiroi. In fact, the Gemara says if we want to symbolize it, the Gemara itself is called Havayas to Abaye and Rava. Now, when Yochanan ben Zakkai was so great, he was the Rebbe of Lazar Gadol, Yeshua Chanya, the Rebbe of the Kiruv Rebbe's, and he was so great that he knew the discussions of Abaye and Rava who would come many generations later. What's big about that? You know what they said. They're lucky when they know what he said. Why is that so great? Well, to know the future of what he said, the answer is that it's not that simple. It means to say he knew the depth. The word Rava is actually, you don't find it today. Nobody's called Rava today. So Rava means also, Name Hashem, is Kadal, is Kadash Shmei Rava, Reish Beis Aleph, is the combination of Yud K and Vav K, which means Yud K, Vav K, and Kim, that's Yud K, Yud K, Vav K, and Aleph Dal Nunjah is Vav K, Hashem and Kim, Hashem Adlai together is Begimatria Rava, or it's got a Shmei Rava. The word Rava means great, big name of Hashem, which means the Yud K, Vav K, with the names of Hashem, it's 4 names. Abaye is 23. Together, Abaye is that Abaye Rava. So the Arizal says, the greatness of Menachem Mendel was he had tremendous bekiyas. What about Sinai? There was bekiyas knowledge, there's a bekiyas that required double bekiyas, twice Baki. And not saying Baki B'Shoyim. Not saying Yeshoyim, of course, the Gematik Halacha, the Pesach, this bekiyas of Menachem Mendel had twice Baki, the Gematria, Abaye, and Rava. This, we go back to, he said the name of Yosef. We don't need proof, of course, but we could see it amazingly in the Gemara itself. The Gemara said that if a person heard someone speak against Hashem, then this person is put to death. What did the person say when he spoke against Hashem? We can't repeat the word, but the Gemara says something dash. By using Hashem's name, the Gemara uses the word Yosef. So, I should say, why Yosef? Because Yosef is 4 letters, the name of Hashem is 4 letters, and the Gemara together 5-letter name of the kid. See that combination of both. Yosef, 4-letter name with a 5, not the other 5. So therefore we can see how all these names are so high and think about. Yosef, for instance, Yosef 6 times Shem Hamayim makes it a tzadik. Yosef, tzadik Yosef. Yosef is the Shishi, the 6th Sfira. 6 times you came up, can you want the Yosef? Now we come to this is a side statement, but it's very pertinent knowledge, and it's all good to know to strengthen our Amunah in the basic fact. Here, the basic fact is the basic rule, without which a person cannot be called a Jew with Amunah. The basic rule is that every single word of the Torah, and Torah includes Gemara, is the word of Hashem. Not one word of the entire Torah is man-made. It's all Hashem's word, and therefore it is all infinite in wisdom and depth. The Gemara says further, Abaye, Rava, Rabbi Zeda, Rav of Breslov. These 4 rabbis, Abaye and Rava. Abaye was Rabba's Talmud. Rava was Yeshuv's Talmud. Rabbi Zeda and Rav of Breslov were sitting together. We have a tzadik relation. The city needed a head. It required a leader. Select the leader from these 4. How do you select one of the 4 as a leader? Which one do you pick? You don't say draw lots or choose. I mean, they said, who is? You need to pick at least 4. It's common sense, simple logic. To pick the best of the 4, you must be better than all 4. If you're better, you'll be the chief rabbi there. So who is authoritative, who is eligible to be able to judge between these 4? How do you pick between the 4? You say that all the R Nosson, by different combination. Whoever says, he makes a statement, learn it. And when he's asked questions, he answers, nobody could disprove a statement, that person shall be the head and chief rabbi. I think she'll make a statement and try to maintain a statement without being disproven. Yours is the kulu ifrach. Abaye vayifrach. All three. Double Atzeda and Master made a statement and they were disproved. Cassius asked against them. He put an answer. They had to withdraw the statement. Only Abaye's statement remained solid. Nobody could shake his statement, so therefore, of course, his statement was chosen. Hazi Rabbi Abaye Pigava Esha. Rabbi saw. Rabbi was Abaye's Rabbi. Rabbi came to visit, seeing that his Talmud was not being placed in a position in the city. He got a medical position in a certain community. Rabbi who gave the tzmicha was very happy to see this. He saw Abaye was sort of light, felt very happy and high. Abaye, he said to Nachmani Psach, he said to him, be careful about the danger of this Yahya. He knows that the person is very wise and very learned. If he has the slightest degree of gaiva, of conceit, of haughtiness, first thing he loses is his wisdom. Abba said to Abaye, you are not so great. Nachmani. In other words, without the title of rabbi or just by name alone. Maybe open your mouth and start talking. An order given to a sort of a child to bring Abaye down, to save and rescue from any danger, any risk of Gaiva Chassidut. Why did he call Nachmani? Because Abaye's name was Nachmani. Especially he was born with the name Nachmani. That's the original name. Yet he is known as Abaye. Of course, the Torah says, Rabbi's father's name was Nachmani also. You're not allowed to call your father by his first name. It's illegal, breaking the law, keep him in the table. Now, since Abaye had no parents. Abaye, the Torah says, was a Yosef. Asher b'chor Yerushalmi Yosef, posek, then he had an orphan, Tevis Abaye. He had no father or mother, therefore he was adopted by Aharon Nachman. Rabbi took Abaye himself. He had to call him Nachmani. He couldn't because that was the name of his own father. His father was around. He'd call Abaye, call Nachmani. His father would think he's calling him. It would be a shameful act. He was forced to change his name. He called him Abaye, which means Avi. This is because of my father. I cannot call him by his name because he has the same name as my father. Changed the name to Abaye, which presented all these things, just from the fact that his father's name. Now he said to him, Nachmani Psach, probably you know how to speak, and speak with humbleness. This is how a Rebbe taught. He's supposed to teach a Talmud. So, it's very Gemara. Rabbi Kodesh said to his Talmidim, teach. He said to him, teach Talmidim, then speak to them in a bitter tone of voice. Insult them, degrade them. If you like them, you'll do that. If you want to save them, you'll do that. But if you flatter them, if you elevate them to a point where you'll bring them to Gaiva Chassidut, you destroy them. The way to keep them, if you're a good Rebbe, is to bring them down a notch. So Rabbi, deep ahava for Abaye said Nachmani Psach, not very often. We find in Pirkei Avos 2, Agav Menachem Zakkai, 5 Talmidim, he spoke to each one of them, he did not address them as Rabbi. Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, Yeshua ben Chananya, the greatest luminaries of all time. Of course, he felt that he respected his Talmidim. The Torah shows how he respected them. And yet, because of this, you speak to them with their name alone, not the word Rebbe, just to the reason of saving them. He felt badly about saying it. He wanted to save them any potential Gaiva. He didn't use the word Rebbe. We find, though, this we do find in Zohar Kodesh, that truly points out addressed this Talmud, he did say that Rabbi Yitzchak did use that term. Deep reason to emphasize. Anyone who says Rabbi Yitzchak, Goydel, they might ask, well, let's give a question out. We just discussed the first of Abaye and Rabbi. How about the last one? How about Masna? What were their qualifications? If we had to choose between these two, which of the two is better? What are their qualities? Zayda Chadek Machshev, The Tzedak's mind is very fast. He is speedy, he can think quickly, he can ask questions on a topic, delve very deeply into it, discuss the topic quickly for the scientists and the pros and cons. He can delve into the depth of both sides. Rabbi Breslov is not as fast, he's slow. He thinks more slowly, but he has a mind that's very subtle. There's no confusion in his mind. As a result, if he thinks slowly, he'll think an item out, and he'll arrive at the true, correct conclusion it did, which is necessary. But when I know, the person in the you have to have a mind that comes out to a final conclusion which is correct. Mind, which of the two is better? Fast, sharp mind, or one that's slow but settled. The word is Tikuney. Tikuney means, we finish this last word of the Gemara, which means that Tishbi, Yovoi, Kala Maheva. Just like Shtevis Tikuney. Tishbi, Yovoi, Kala Maheva. Very quickly for the Tishbi, Yaakov, Korban, the Pesach, the Hayom, today. Here we come today. See the coming out, and let me clarify all these questions and to announce, to proclaim the coming of Mashiach. Sfida, Saima, V'yamei Sfida. Dinam, counting the Emet, the Dinam, the custom during the days of counting the Emet, custom of the morning. Sfida begins on the second night of Pesach. We discussed this before, but this was Shabbat Shir. It's good to have this down, posterity. Custom is, according to the Arizal, count the Omer not in Shul after Mada, but at the end of the Seder, the end of the second Seder. The night of the second day of Pesach, Sfida is counted at the end of the second Seder. Sfida must be counted standing. You're not allowed to count the Sfida sitting. Shiloh was the first of Yud Tzachal. The mitzvah is to count the Sfida after it is dark. It is definitely dark. And if the mitzvah is to count it as soon as it gets dark. But if you didn't count it at that moment, time is still good for the entire night. As long as it's before morning, before daybreak, you can still say the bracha. Bracha al Sfida Saimeh. If he forgets to count the entire night, he remind himself the next morning. Let's say this was Monday night. This was the Tuesday. See that the Tuesday. Monday night you're supposed to count. You can count with the bracha on Monday night until Oisa Shachar of Tuesday morning. If he woke up Tuesday morning, remind us that he's not counted yet, but it's still Tuesday. It's not. The day is not gone yet. However, the night of that day is gone already, so he still can count, but without a bracha that day. On Tuesday morning and all day Tuesday, he can count without a bracha. If, as for sure, he didn't remind himself until the next night, which means that the entire Tuesday is gone, the entire 24-hour period is gone, then he counts without a bracha for the rest of the Sfida. If the entire, less 24-hour period is gone without counting, he has lost chain. To be entitled to the chain, meaning with a bracha every night, it's only if he never allowed a 24-hour period to go by without counting. Even if the night itself was forgotten, he did not count at night, but he caught himself during the day, he still saved himself, the chain is still there. He still counts from that night on with a bracha for the rest of the time. Therefore, the minig Yisrael is, the Chachma Yisrael is, that they always count Sfida in the morning too. Not a bracha. Every morning they count Sfida. Hayom, Shloisha, Yomim, La'imah. It's insurance, just in case, at night they was forgotten. They remind themselves in the morning. They know they catch themselves before that period is lost. So even if they did count, when they still count that morning, they constantly know that there's extra added insurance against forgetting. Necessarily the person should be take every precaution possible. Nothing embarrassing about it. You want to set up, one of the best things is set up a note, the bedboard. Before going to bed, a big sign, W, that you can't say, no, you forget. You see that, you say, right? Of course, with that, Tikuney Zohar. There are people who I've seen in all the years of experience. I've seen people who go through, who know the importance of counting. You know that a person who is Zohar, is only a person who is Zohar. We can't even conceive the kedusha that's involved. But a person can be able to. You count the you keep rising one to make kedusha each time until the last night, the night of Shavuot itself. A person's up then, actually takes part in a wedding. Wedding of, again, Matan Torah, Har Sinai, between the Jews, and Hashem and the Jews. So this is possible only who can take part in that, and those who were present during the entire period of 49 days. So that's why there's no limit to what a person should do in order to remember. Times when the person realizing this, sometimes it goes a long time, 49 days, a month and a half. Over a month and a half, you have a lot of things that can take place. You have to go out to a wedding, then you go out late, then you go on a date late, everything's a mitzvah. And they come home very late too, not a mitzvah. Very late, and that night is spent completely absorbed in conversation. Svita is Chadashon forgotten. You go to bed, they're bleary eyed, they don't see the sign of the bed, they don't see the word David. When they see it, they figure, it's usual, David, every night see David. And they go to bed, they go to sleep, they wake up the next morning, they go back to work, and nothing reminds them until the following night, they suddenly are struck with a lightning bolt. It's too late. It's very heartbreaking. This happens sometimes. See it happen all times, from various times. It happens usually in the middle of the counting the Yom. And I see this happen with a person who's very careful, wrapped himself out until the 48th night. And then it was really heartbreaking when he lost that day. Really heartbreaking. I've seen one who lost it in the first time. Of course, he was told to count the Yom at the table. So he was in shul, he didn't count the shul. Went along to the Seder. They didn't have counting in the Seder there. Right? So he got, and the next night, they were police again, shul, reminded himself, it's a good way to start. It's like that, you wait till next year. But very, very seriously, very person take this very much not because this is a close to the skin, it's immeasurable. A person should be zechah. You can't imagine the simcha that a person should feel in his heart. And the simcha that the Neshama feels as he gets closer, as the person finally makes it. The person can say that I made it. I made the entire 49 days. I sit up the night of Shavuos and really take part in the Chassidut about the Torah. Ashrei to the person who can do that. Of course, we'll have Mr. Shem tonight in Shavuos and talk about this more in detail, more in depth. It's better to start now and remind it. So, therefore, every person should do whatever is necessary. Put up signs all over the house, have two people, if they call each other at night, don't waste effort. It's worth it. You finished, you've made it, it's worth it. All the effort you put into it. Now, a person who asks after sundown, they ask you a question, how much is tonight's meal? That's not tonight. So yes, how much tonight's meal? You say 4 days. The 4th day. After sundown, by saying it, the counting of the emet is the mitzvah, not to say the bracha. Bracha is additional mitzvah. And if your person counts the emet, even without kavanah, he already is yetzer, and he lost his chance to say it again with a bracha. The person should be careful. They ask you, what's tonight's tefillah? You say, yesterday was 3 days. You know how much is tonight? 3 + 1. The never to say the day itself. Of course, there are evasive actions and means the place can bring there are ways to do it. It's better not to take chances in those ways because you get stuck. Well, the Goy says, for instance, that Simon Samach, the challenge broke, the mitzvah requires kavanah on that. Some say mitzvah requires kavanah, like that is. Some say it doesn't require kavanah. But all admit that if the person specifically has in mind not to be yotze, he's not yotze. A person would ask you, how much is tonight? You say 4 days, and I have in mind when they say 4 days, I'm not yotze, specifically, clearly. He's not yotze, so he's safe. That's a hard trick to play. You don't play the tricks unless you're a tightrope walker. The best thing to do is to be an ish kosher. You understand different tricks also. So there are many ways to do it, but don't do it. It's hayyim and so forth. It's better not to do these tricks. simply, in the cases, ask the Sfira, do you alert, do you awake? But don't say the number, otherwise the answer will tell you. Of course, if you did say the number, then you have a shadow, you have to know whether you can count Sfira. Then you first have to ask the shadow, was I Yitzhak or was I not? You have to know this. The way you say it, you have, let's say, 36 days, 5 weeks in 1 day, you're not Yitzhak, you have a certain part of that 6, just say 36 alone, you're not Yitzhak. It has to be additional words, we won't mention it now, but in case it does happen, you ask to clarify whether you can still count. Best thing is to avoid that situation arising. One final item. A person is supposed to have kavanah on the number he's about to count. For instance, a person is going to start counting, and you say the bracha. When you say the bracha, you're supposed to know. Saying a bracha, I'll speed us later for a certain number. The number is 5. Today is 5 days of the Yemeh. Keep in mind, it's 5. You don't go, I'll speed us later, then you say, now, what was the number? You don't finish the bracha, then first I think of the number. However, if a person did that, says the bracha, and in his mind he says to himself, today is say this bracha, I'll speed us later for 4 days. At the end of the bracha, he reminds himself, oops, it's 5, because I heard, well, next time he say 5, he's right, he goes, I'm going to want that size for the bed. So, at that moment, he changes and says, today is 5 days. He gets it. Even though the bracha was said with the thought of 4, still, as long as the bracha was said, if he says the right number, he gets it. Not only that, if we come to a very important thing, we had in mind, and the person says, first is the bracha, then he says, today is 4 days, and he reminds himself that what, that it's 5 days, he says, today is 4 days, 5 days. He corrects himself within a period of the saying of 3 words. If it's within those 2 seconds to say the 3 words, then he's safe. If it takes longer than Tach Kebei Dibur, it's too late. He gets to go back again to say the bracha. If he did not say the number at all, even though the bracha was said to the wrong thing, he could still say the right thing and no problem. But if he said the bracha and he said the number, and he didn't remind himself that after Dibur, after these 3 seconds over, then the entire bracha is lost. You got to say no. If he reminded himself within the amount of time it takes for witnesses to testify and be counted as 1 unit, right? Read the Aharon, only going in here and fucking shas, you know, the Efes Edis, counted as 1 unit, then this applies also to the counting of the end. And it's enough to correct the number without having to go back to the bracha again. We should reserve it to correct ourselves, straighten ourselves out, the emes, the Evnei Hashem, the emes, the Tikuney, the Pshitus, the Skamus, the Arizal, and we should reserve it now. Now we've had these Sidorim, we had Pesach, so now we can go from Chayil of Chayil, it's from Yom Tov Pesach, Yom Tov B'yat Mashiach. Now, we're going to see Mashiach now, let's see the Beit HaMikdash. Hilchos Sfiras Soina, Yemei Sfira. We want to institute a minhag that might seem strange or childish in the eyes of others, but if it's done to Pshitas B'Knimus, it's certainly worth it. Every morning, after taking our Chloe, just before the Kaddish Acher, we can't forget it, we're going to count the Anya together, of course without a bracha. But this will ensure, if ever anybody forgets at night, there's no way you can miss out on the Anya. All those who come adopt with a minyan in the morning will be guaranteed that there's no way to miss out on the Anya completely. So this is henceforth we are starting to learn every day after taking our Chloe, we count the Anya together. Now, in reference to the minhagim of Avelis on Sfira, there is a very sharp controversy in machlekes between these 2 minhagim. And we want to explain the stand of both clearly enough that it should be understood why there is so sharp a rift between these 2 customs. And also to understand the reason for our minhag. fact is, the Gemara says that on the days of Sfida, counting the Yoma, the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were the Stali. Because of that, because there were so many, 24,000 great tzaddikim, so it's customary to mourn. Avelis among all Jews. Rabbi Akiva was so great, you know, tzaddikim. But the fact was that they did not die during all the days of the Sfida. Not during the 49 days, but during 33 days. Only for 33 days alone. Therefore, it is customary that for 33 days there is a mourning period.